There is bipartisan anger growing on Capitol Hill concerning those deadly boat strikes in the Caribbean. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying it was Vice Admiral Frank Bradley who ordered the deadly second strike, and now some members of Congress are asking whether it was legal, was it a war crime, or was it murder? They are demanding the video of the strike be released. Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed joins us live now from Capitol Hill. And Nate, what have you been hearing from both sides of the aisle on this?
Well, look, in just the last hour or so, we've learned that the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee will actually be meeting with Admiral Bradley up here on Capitol Hill to have a discussion about those strikes. Again, there's a whole lot of bipartisan intrigue into what exactly went down. Secretary Hegseth defending those strikes earlier today as effectively the fog of war, saying that he was not personally aware of whether anyone was still alive after that first strike, which was publicized, of course, on social media, posted on Truth Social by President Donald Trump. Here is Senator Warner, though, addressing that question of oversight of the Department of War.
I don't have a lot of faith in Secretary Hegseth. You know, we know he was bragging about the fact that he watched real time this attack, I believe, September 2nd. And if there's no problem there, why not release the unedited video? Didn't he pound his chest in front of all the admirals and generals and brag about how he was bringing a new esprit de corps to the Department of Defense? Seems like first time there's a little bit of activity, he's instead trying to remove his level of responsibility.
And again, not exactly clear what answers they'll be able to get from the Trump administration. They're actually in a closed briefing as we speak right now on Capitol Hill. Not clear if it's on this or other matters. But it's worth noting that this is one issue that appears to have divided Republicans. There are some Republicans who say that they stand behind the Trump administration, that they defend the actions taken by Secretary Hegseth. And there are others who say they're looking for more information. We learned, of course, over the weekend about those twin probes from the House Armed Services Committee and Senate Armed Services Committee, Democrats and Republicans looking into these strikes and whether a war crime was or was not committed. Furthermore, what the DOD knew and why it made decisions that it made on those combatants or non-military combatants. Again, a lot of questions up here about those strikes. Earlier today, Senator Rand Paul, fairly outspoken among Republicans, making clear that he had serious issues with the fact that the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, went through with those strikes. Take a listen.
Secretary Hegseth said he had no knowledge of this and it did not happen. It was fake news. It didn't happen. And then the next day from the podium of the White House they're saying it did happen. So either he was lying to us on Sunday or he's incompetent and didn't know it had happened. Do we think there's any chance that on Sunday the Secretary of the Defense did not know there had been a second strike? So as a country, we're just going to let people lie to us, to our face. We're going to let them kill people who they call enemies anytime in the world. We're going to let them, like when someone is stranded and holding on to the scraps of a boat, put a second bomb on them. I think it's outrageous and should be universally condemned.
And to be clear, Senator Paul is, somewhat outspoken among his Republican colleagues for his comments about this attack on those boats in the Caribbean up to this point. That being said, there certainly is an effort up here. There are some questions about what Republicans will learn through their oversight of the Department of Defense, which the Trump administration has renamed the Department of War. So again, not exactly clear if this is going away anytime soon. And certainly the changing story and the escalating disclosures from the White House about what they knew, when they knew it, and the situation behind these now multiple strikes which have been confirmed, that is continuing to raise alarm bells up here on Capitol Hill and leaving a lot of questions. To be clear, though, Del, for the most part, Democrats have largely, said they do not support Pete Hegseth. Many of them have called on him to resign in the past. It doesn't seem like those opinions have changed at all, that they are still looking for the Secretary of Defense to resign. At the same time, Republicans largely have stood behind him, some, though, saying in the wake of that attack that they have more questions that they would like answered.
And Nate, the questions continue to surface. The Defense Secretary saying today in that cabinet meeting that it was an hour before the second missile was launched. And then he described the fog of war. You'd have to look at that boat and say that's a lot of fog. But also breaking news on the Senate side involving the Senate Majority Leader. What did he have to say?
Yeah, Senator John Thune was asked to address this, asked whether he had confidence in Pete Hegseth. He didn't necessarily say that he had confidence in Hegseth. He made clear that he has confidence in the Trump administration and underscored the fact that the Senate Armed Services Committee is going to be probing this episode. Now, to be clear, the Senate Majority Leader has largely stood behind the Trump administration. He's bucked them on only a handful of issues. Think about the Senate's filibuster rules, something he's remained firm on, the blue slip process with the selection of judges and U.S. attorneys for various states. But that being said, he has largely stood behind the Trump administration. It appears like he is continuing to stand behind them, while at the same time, of course, having to be mindful that he has members, Republican members in the Senate, who have questions about this and want more information on these strikes to understand exactly what the order of operations was at the Department of Defense. Furthermore, looking into whether a war crime may have been committed. Democrats are largely the ones who have been using that terminology. To be clear, though, no one is necessarily saying at this point that they definitively know of a war crime. Rather, they want more information. They want to see that video. They would like additional disclosures. There's a lot of information that Capitol Hill is looking for. Not clear, though, yet if Secretary Hegseth will come up here to testify. That there are certainly a number of senators, both Democrats and Republicans, who would like him to do so.
Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed for us live on Capitol Hill. As always, Nate, thank you.